Hi everyone, we're doing lesson 4 today, and the title is Domain and Range. Domain and range is a very fundamental concept for functions, and you need it for grade 11, 12, and university. And actually, it's a very simple ideas. Okay, domain describe all the possible values for your input, and range describe all the output. It's actually very simple and very easy, but for some reason, people find it quite confusing when they are in older grade. So I think if we learn it right the first time, get it very clear the first time, and then when you see this concept in upcoming courses, and then you say, oh, I understand it, it's very easy. And it is actually quite straightforward. Okay, so let's start. All right, well, review. Let's look at lesson 3. Lesson 3, we learn for any function relations, the x-intercept is letting y be 0. Okay, so x-intercept is when its y-coordinate is 0. And for the y-intercept, it is when the x-coordinate is 0, right? So all x-intercept has this form, x, 0. Something x and then 0. Whenever you see something in this form, you know it's an x-intercept. In here, the y you write as 0. And then all y-intercept has this form, 0y. Right? So if you have a 0, 3, you know that's a y-intercept. If it's 0, negative 1,000, you know that's a y-intercept. All right, now let's look at today's topic, domain and range. What is domain? Okay, now we look at a relation or function, relation is between two quantities. So we're talking about two things here. One is the independent variable, one is the input, and then you have the output, you have the dependent variables. So domain and range is about these two quantity. The domain is the all values that can be used for the input for the function. So all possible values mean what are the inputs. All right, this is very simple. And then the range, it describes what are the outputs. So domains mean what are the inputs is the x variable. And then the range mean what are the output. What are the dependent variables? What are the y? Now, to represent a relation, we have all these different ways. So in the following lesson, we're going to study domain and range in all of this form. Okay. All right, so let's look at order pairs. So when I have order pairs, list the domain and range of the order pairs. Now, how do you write it? Okay, well, domain is all the input. So what does this order pair mean? It means x, y, x, y, x, y, right? It has to be in that order, ordered. The order is important. And then x is always the input. The 2 is the output. So you put in 1, you get 2. You put in 0, you get 5. You put in 3, you get 8. You put in 5, you get output of 9. So what's all the input? Well, it just look at all the input here. 1, 0, 3, 5, negative 3. So the domain is, now to show us list of number, you use a curly bracket, and then you can put them in order. So negative 3, 0, 1, 3, 5. Okay, so this is all the domain. All right. And what's all the range? What are all different values of the output? Okay, for this function, you can have 2, 5, 8, 9, and 2. Well, there's two 2's. Well, you're just asking what are the possible output. 2 is the possible output. You don't need to rewrite it. So just write 2, 5, 8, 9. Okay. All right, so the second one, same thing. So domain is the first element. So domain is a list of numbers, negative 8, negative 3, 0, 2, 3. And then range is a list of number. So 3, 3, 3, 9, 3. It just means 3 and 9. Oh, see, so how easy it is. So domain just describe all the values of the input, and range just describe all the values of the output. So if you get it right, then you won't be confused forever. All right, how about we have a graph? All right, so what's domain and range? So domain is the input, domain is the x, domain is the independent variable. Okay. So if you look here, so we start with negative 4, negative 3, negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's my domain. So I'll write the following. Domain is negative 4, negative 3, negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And then what's the range? So if you look here, the range now you look at the y. All right. So another confusion may be people can't separate x and y. It's two different dimensions. And looking at the graph is help you separate when you see a point. You look at it as two elements, one x, one y. Look at them separately. Now for y, the value is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So for range, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. Now moving on to the next one. Okay, now we don't have dots here. We have connected line, which means the range, the domain. Okay, let's look at domain. Domain is like here, all the x's. Start from smallest is -4, largest is 4, right? And it takes on every value in between. Now you're only looking at x now. It doesn't matter how high or low it is. You just look at what value does it exist on x. So there's no value exists here beyond this point. So it's all the number between -4 and 4. So how do we show that? Right? We can write, so let me show you another notation. Okay, we can write x. Okay, because people know x represent domain. X, and then you draw a line there. What's x? What's the domain? Domain is, how do you say x is between -4 and 4? So this is how you write it. You put x actually physically between -4 and 4. And then you write less than or equal to, less than or equal to. Okay, this means x is, now if you look at the arrow, x is on the bigger side than -4. X bigger than -4, but x less than 4, which means x in between. Okay, so when you want to specify a range of data, and then you just put the variable in between, and then you put your two boundaries. And then we also write another thing, x is in the set of, so this is like a E, okay, it's a Greek letter. And then you write a big capital R. If you remember, we learned about number set earlier. X is a set of all real numbers, which means any fractions, any decimal, any irrational number in between. Let's say you have a pi here, right? So because pi is 3.14, so 1, 2, 3. So pi is somewhere there, it's part of it. Okay, so it's including all the rational and irrational number. You just write all real numbers. So you always write that. Okay, so this is the part maybe people start getting confusing. Okay, let's look at the range, the smallest value. So for domain and range, domain you look left and right. For range you look up and down. The highest this graph goes is 5. The lowest this graph goes is 0. So for range, your range is between 0 and 5. You write it like that. And then you write y is takes on every value in between. All right. Now let's come back to part A. Because once we see this notation, we have another way to write this notation, okay? Which is, instead of listing -4 to 4, it takes a long time. How about the question is -100 to 100? Do I need to write all this number out? Well, of course, math is always smarter than you think. Okay, so for that, you can write, so I'm just, or alternative, you can write x is between -4 and 4, but not all real number this time. Okay, x is in a set of, it's just integer. Okay, you just use that capital letter I. Let's represent integer. Okay, capital N represent natural number, I for integer, W for whole number, R for all real numbers, and Q for irrational number. We saw that in earlier question when we do number set this year. Okay, so between 0 and 4, and y is just integer. Okay, it doesn't take on the intermediate value. It's just integer. So this is another way to write it. Okay, we use I and we use R. Usually we just use I or R. We don't use other thing. So don't worry. Okay, next one is interesting. Okay, now it's getting a bit more abstract now. Now this arrow means it goes on forever. Okay, it goes on forever. It's go to -5, -6, -7. Forever mean -100, -1,000. Forever means keep going -10,000 trillion, negative, like forever. And then, so for this function, when it go to the right, it goes on forever. When you go to the left, it's go on forever. Go to the right, it's also go on forever. So there's no limit on its domain. Or the other way, the domain will take on all values. So you can write this way. X will take on all values. Okay? So make sure you get this. This is a little bit abstract because this is like thinking about eternity, like infinity. Just go on forever. Now how about Y? Okay. Now how high does it go? It goes as high as 4. Okay. How low does it go? Range is up and down. Okay. And domain is left and right. So how high does it go? This graph go as high as 4. How low does it go? It goes forever, negative infinity. Okay. So you can write it this way. Y less than or equal to 4. Okay. And then you can write that as well. Okay, so make sure you get this example because it's a bit abstract now because we talk about something that doesn't have a boundary. Okay, but you stick to the same concept, domain and range describe of a set of all input and output. All right, now let's look at example 3. Okay, so between A and B, I think B is easier because it's finite, which means it's confined, like you see the boundary. So what is the domain? So let's do B first. Domain, it's like putting a box around your graph. And then you define the left and right, that's the domain, and you define up and down, that's the range. When you look at left and right, you don't care the up and down, don't mix everything up. Math make you think clearly. So you just look at left and right now. Farthest left is -2, farthest right is 4. So I'll write x is between -2 and 4. Okay? And then for range, highest is 1, lowest is 3. Here we go. Okay, so this is the shortest form, so I will accept this as the answer. But the more formal way, like this assume is all the real numbers in between. But the more formal way, the complete answer, like this is good enough, but the complete answer, you stick something in the front. Okay, you put a curly thing here, and then you write, okay, so all these are just formality. Okay, but it looks so cool when you know how to do it. All right, let's come back to A. A is harder because this means it goes on forever. All right, very abstract. It goes on forever. So go to the left forever, go to the right forever. So x is just all real numbers. Does it make sense? Right? Go to the left forever, go to the right forever. You say, how about this point? Sorry, that's y. All right. Now you look up and down. It go up forever. Okay, go up forever, both of them. But go down to -3. So the lowest point is -3. So y is any values bigger than -3. That is how you write it. Okay, so formality, just stick a x in front, this is a y in front, put a curly bracket, and then just add this. Okay, this is formality, but this itself here is good enough for me. Okay, let's moving on. Okay, more example. So how about this like mapping notation? Remember what's domain and range. Domain is a set of all real numbers. Okay, well let's try this way then. Domain is a set of all real numbers, so x is 1, 2, 3. Okay. Range is a set of all output. It takes on two values, just 2 and 6, so we just write it this way. A circle with center at 2, 3 and a radius of 3. Okay, so -2, 1, 2, 3. So this is my thing. All right, this is my center. And I draw a radius of 3. So 3 units here, 3 units here, 3 units, 1, 2, 3. So I'm as high as 6. And 3 units, -2, -5. Okay, so this is my circle. All right, so x is between -5, right? Because from 2 you go to the left by 3, you get -5. From -2 you go to the right by 3, you get +1. Okay, and then for range you go up and down. All right, so from 3, let's remember this is x, this is y. So the range is as high as 6, as low as 0. Just 3 units away from the center, and then you can stick the other thing there. All right. So I need to make another video. It's run out.